Hi, I'm John Knight, Programme Director at SECO, and welcome to this second part of our presentation on developing a commercial culture. So what I'm going to cover in the next 10 minutes or so is just a quick recap of those cultural and behavioural factors, just to put all that into context, and how we go about diagnosing the key factors. Then I'll get on to the meat of this presentation, which is about actually understanding the ways to support change, the types of intervention, the kinds of actions we need to take to make things happen. And then I'll try and put that into a practical application to get out of the theory and start talking about how it might be used in real life. I'll just say that if you haven't seen part one of the presentation, then there's a link below and you might want to go to that before watching this. In part one of this presentation, I talked at some length about applying a methodology to change. I talked about the fact that a lot of people see change as soft and fluffy, and dispelling that myth by explaining how you can apply a science, a methodology, you can apply processes, and you can give some real rigor to the kind of cultural or behavioural change you're trying to achieve. I will just briefly recap on diagnosing those three key elements of change, so skill, will and fulfill, that I talked about previously. If you haven't seen the first part, I'd recommend you do so because there's a lot more detail about this. So skill is about people being capable of delivering the change. It's about two factors, either their physical ability to do things differently, or it's about their psychological capability to be able to learn and be educated to do things differently. Secondly, I'll move on to fulfill. That is about giving people the right environment and the right opportunities to change. Again, two ways we can think about this. It might be about physical changes. So in a commercial environment, that might be about giving people the right tools to do things differently, to sell or to behave more commercially. Or it might be about social changes. That might be about changing the permissions, changing the attitude to risk to allow people to do things differently. And the third one of those key elements is will. This is about people having the motivation to change. That's either consciously, there are things that people do or don't want to do, and they consciously choose not to, or it's unconsciously, it's just the way someone's brought up, it's in their psyche, it's not something they positively will be thinking about, but it's always there in their mind. So moving right along to those key factors, those elements or those interventions we need to consider. Now, when we work with a lot of organisations who want to address a change in behaviour, especially a commercial change in behaviour, there can tend to be a bit of a one-size-fits-all stock solution to that. If I can quote Tony Blair, education, education, education. We need to teach people what it means to be more commercial. Well, sometimes yes, that might be the right way to do it, but it's only one of many interventions. You need to actually work out why people aren't changing their behaviour before you then decide what it is you need to do to address it. And I'll go through some of those factors now and some of those interventions and where they apply and where they don't apply. So let's look at those 9 types of intervention, how I've broken it down. The first one, yes, is the education one. So yes, teach academic education is definitely right in some circumstances, but not all. And I've broken down number 2 from that as train, which is about upskilling, the more practical hands-on learning as opposed to the chalk and talk learning. Number 3, coax. It's about encouraging and persuading people of the need for change by communicating it. 4 and 5 are the carrot and the stick, so they're two sides of the same coin really. So number 4, reward, which is incentivize people in a commercial setting. That might be about a bonus scheme for numbers of sales. Number 5, coerce, the stick, which is punish people or charge them. In a wider setting, that kind of charging might be things like the sugar tax to try to change behaviour, or it might be the congestion charge. It's the kind of things you would use in connection with other activities as well, but it might be one way to change people's behaviours to actually make it a cost to them. Number 6 is restructure. So actually, if things can't be done, maybe we need to change the way we are structured to allow things to happen. 7 is the walking the walk, which is the role modeling and getting leaders and influencers to behave in the kind of ways we want them to behave. And hopefully other people will see that and start behaving that way also. Number 8 is restrict. It's the no-go rules. It's the motorway gantry signs that close lanes or change speeds to make people behave in different ways. And number 9 is a bit of a catch-all really. It's enable. It's about reducing the barriers and increasing the opportunities for people to be able to change and to do things differently. So I appreciate I could talk about most of these interventions at length and explain and understand why different ones react differently, but I'll just give you a couple of very quick examples to be going on with in this time. So the first one is let's talk about teaching, let's talk about education. So what it can and can't do. So if you found that people just genuinely didn't understand about the subject, then yes, you could change their psychological capability by educating them, quite obviously. And by doing that, you can also change their conscious will. You can make them think differently about issues. But education can't change the environment, it can't change unconscious will, and it can't upskill someone physically. Reward and coercion, the carrot and the stick, both are about changing motivations for doing and not doing something. So actually it's about incentivizing positive change with a carrot or punishing lack of change with a stick. As I say, think of the sugar tax. It both increased the charge for people on drinks with a high sugar content, and it made the manufacturers try to work out ways of lowering sugar, therefore not incurring the charge. It can change minds, both conscious and unconscious, in the way people behave, but it doesn't change the physical or social environment, and they don't change people's physical capability or understanding. Then let's put that into a worked example to actually put it into context, because all this feels very theoretical to this point. So let's think of a commercial behaviour type problem, and one that we encounter quite often. So let's define the change we want to happen. So what's the problem here? Well, we've got a bunch of staff in an organisation who actually provide a service to customers. They take money for a payment of a service. But actually, when they've got that customer on the phone, in person, on the email, they don't actually think about offering further services or products that customer might be interested in. So, okay, so that's the change we want to see happen. So now we need to understand what are the behaviours that aren't happening that we need to change. So once we've looked into this issue, we can see that actually staff don't see it as their role to sell further products. They think they get the customer, they provide the service to the customer, job done. And furthermore, they don't see or understand what they could sell, and they don't have the tools to be able to sell it. So maybe they need some sort of CRM system or something like that, so they could see customers who bought this also went on to buy that, or the customer you're currently dealing with also has a requirement for something else but doesn't actually have it at the moment. So maybe if they had the tools, they could do that further. Okay, so those are the two problems. If that's the problem, how could we apply different types of intervention to consider the actions we might want to take to make those behavioural changes? Well, here comes a very complex matrix which gives you all the intervention types and all the types of behaviour change. and tries to match some of those up. So let's think about that practical example. Here's the matrix. Well, one of the things we said that staff don't think it's their job to do that. So we need, in this case, probably to change their conscious will by actually educating and teaching them that that there are things they should be doing to upsell for customers. We also need to do that through communication and explaining to people the benefits if they behave differently, so it's coaching them. We could also apply the carrot and the stick to them, so maybe we do want to, in this case, use some sort of incentive scheme, bonus scheme, or alternatively a lack of bonus scheme if people don't upsell. So those are the things we would look at to identify changing that kind of conscious will. It's not my job. The other side of it, we said, was about them not having the skills or the tools to be able to upskill, so to upsell. So maybe there we need to train. Maybe there is a system, a CRM system, or maybe they need a CRM system. They need to be trained and competent to use it to change that kind of physical fulfillment. Maybe we need to restructure the department. Maybe things come in the wrong way, come to the wrong people. Maybe we need to focus customers on a particular pool of staff, something like that. So maybe there is a restructure need to change that structure of the organisation. We could restrict how people behave. So maybe they're not allowed to finish a call until they've actually said to the customer, is there anything else I can offer you, or have you thought about this? Something like that. Maybe they can't actually finish the conversation until they do that, so we could restrict what they're able to do. Or maybe quite the opposite, we can enable them. We can just say, sell to your heart's content. We're going to give you the wherewithal to do that, and we're going to enable you. We're going to give you the tools and techniques, and we're going to make that happen. I recognise that I've covered an awful lot in this session and tried to cram a lot in to try to get people to understand some of this stuff. You can see all the ways in which SECO have worked with organisations here, from behaviour change and organisation design and development, leadership, business cases, process redesign. All of these things have a significant element of behaviour change within them, and we could give you some more help on how we might be able to do that. So if you are interested in knowing any more about this sort of stuff, then either drop us a line, give us a call, or go to the SECO website to find out more. Thank you very much.